Hello and welcome to the April 22nd episode of Beacon Web News. I'm Sym Kehr. Not being on campus has kept prospective students from visiting MCLA to take tours and meet people. Admissions has taken some steps to help with this issue and to give prospective students all the information they would need to make their college decision. Cara Fusco has more on this story.
The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a shift for schools going into online learning, but it's also created a change for prospective students looking at colleges. MCLA Admissions has implemented virtual opportunities to meet prospective students' future peers, while also creating virtual tours that can be found on the MCLA website and social media pages.
The first thing we did was kind of put together additional video content that we didn't have, so that way students were able to watch a little bit more about our campus. So we came up with a virtual tour, as well as a few other videos and information session, a look into what Accepted Student Day was like, since they aren't able to come to campus for those anymore. So just some extra video content for them to view. In the meantime, once those were out, our staff worked towards coming up with some virtual opportunities to meet, so different webinars based off of different topics. We hosted trivia days, we hosted meet and greets, so really all sorts of different things so students learn a little bit more about MCLA before making their decision. So our virtual tours right now are just little video clips that students can go click on a place on the map and then learn a little bit more about that building. Virtual tours are really a best practice even before COVID-19, and we've had multiple iterations of them, but we decided to kind of chop them up a little bit, make them shorter so we could have them on Instagram and all sorts of other social media platforms. So it was really a joint effort between us. Our student ambassadors were a massive help to getting all of that done as quickly as we did, and then contracted out with Great Sky Media to help create the videos. This pandemic definitely has affected the work that we're doing. You know, we know and knew before all of this happened that when students visit our campus, they fall in love with it, and then they end up deciding to come. And since we are unable to offer visits, we know that that's going to have an impact on the end numbers. We pushed back our enrollment deadline. Normally it's May 1st nationwide, but we pushed it back to June 1st, so students had more opportunities and more time to make sure they're making the right decision, right? Emotionally, financially, making sure that we gave them extra time to make that process. So we won't know much further out into the summer how this is all going to roll out and affect our new student enrollment.
The new fitness center is still under construction and work is currently still being done. I sat down with Vice President of Student Affairs Cathy Holbrook to find out how the progress is going. The construction of the new fitness center is still ongoing, and even through this pandemic, work is still being done. The contracting companies are taking steps to ensure their safety during this uncertain time.
There are state guidelines for folks who are authorized or considered essential workers, like some of these construction workers, and they must follow those guidelines. And that is part of what the general contractor that the college has hired is managing with the individual subcontractors. They make sure that they're following those guidelines and that they're protecting their workers.
To ensure that work can still be done, some scheduling of construction has had to be moved around.
Our general contractor is doing a masterful job of pivoting, which is a word we're all using, when one vendor is unable to come and do something like pour the floor for either the company itself is not operating right now or they're in a hiatus, and then they'll substitute that with another vendor, like the painters are scheduled to come in and paint. And so they're changing the order of the construction. We were very fortunate that we were toward the end of the project when all of this happened. I think that if we were very early on in the project, we would be seeing a significant delay.
The projected deadline is still set to be finished before the fall semester begins. However, the exact timeline has been pushed back a few weeks.
I think we were hoping that it might be done in June, and then we'd have all summer to get everything set up and all that. And I think now that is behind by maybe 4 to 6 weeks.
At this time, it is unknown what will occupy the old fitness center, but the plans are to involve students in making that decision.
We have talked about since for over 5 years now that because that's how long this project had been in the works and then move forward, that what this building needs is more student gathering space, more space that can be used, that's flexible, that can be used for lounge or studying by day and social events by evening. And we have said from the beginning that we want to work with student government and the student body to determine what that looks like when the space is actually available. So the ideas that were on the table 5 years ago when I started here are very different than what the current student government and current students want. So once the project is done and that space is empty, that discussion will happen. And obviously we wouldn't do it this summer. It needs to be in consultation with students, and they'll help determine how we're going to use that space.
For Beacon Web News, I'm Sym Kehr. Being away from campus hasn't stopped some clubs from hosting events and maintaining student engagement. May Craig spoke with a few eBoard members of different clubs to see what they're doing to keep students involved virtually.
With MCLA students not being on campus, I interviewed a few members from SGA, SAC, WJJW, and Christian Fellowship to discuss how club members are interacting with students online via the coronavirus. One of the organizers for SAC, Crystal Waljack, uses social media to interact with students and keep them updated on upcoming events online.
Every week we assign 2 of our eBoard members to run our social media, and they come up with a plan for the week. Like last week they gave Spirit Week. Before that it was a bunch of interactive posts for like book recommendations, TV show recommendations, like show us your workspace, things like that. And then this week we're running our traditional spring week. Normally SAC has our spring week in April, and we actually had it planned to last the whole month of April this year, but we condensed down what we could still do virtually into 1 week. And that's kind of how we've been interacting with students over this virtual setting.
President and Station Manager Jake Vitale talks about what WJJW has been doing to interact with students online.
It's really kind of interesting how we've, taken what we do in a studio where everything is all set up for you, and then we're moving it to people's homes. Excuse me. And so what we're doing once people are at home is people taking the skills that they've learned, particularly their production skills that they've learned from being a part of the radio station, and they're producing shows from the comfort of their own homes, usually about 1 hour in length. And then what we're doing is we're giving all of those shows to Jim, our advisor, of course, also the Beacon advisor, right? Mm-hmm. And he is the one who's going in studio and making sure these programs hit the airwaves. And this is happening typically on Fridays. Well, we've really been utilizing social media to kind of stay in touch with people. And then, of course, I think the biggest way that we're still connecting with people is, really connecting with our audience, actually.
Head of Christian Fellowship, Tara Vallon, talks about how social media has been helpful in connecting students together.
So my club, Christian Fellowship, we still have our Bible study every Wednesday night, and on Sundays we do Sunday service. And I'm on SAC, and we still have activities, and we have our high school SAC Cal week coming up, and Big Prize Bingo on Saturday. So clubs are still hosting activities, and they're also interacting a lot on social media. I've seen like all sorts of clubs and departments on school posting things on Instagram. But for Christian Fellowship, it's actually been better because people who normally have like really busy like FPA schedules don't have that right now. So they can come to our virtual meetings when they couldn't come to the in-person meeting.
For Beacon Web News, I'm May Craig.
To check out this week's episode of Weary Weekly Entertainment, you can find the link in the description box. Robert Weary explores some history about arts and entertainment venues around the MCLA campus and more stories. That's it for this week. To stay up to date with Beacon Web News, you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/MCLA.EDU. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.